Here's something that I don't see anyone talking about, and it's the female loneliness epidemic. I just turned 23 and I am officially done with looking for new friends because nowadays girls are impossible to make friends with. Before you call me a pick-me, hear me out. In my experience, young women today do not know what it means to be a friend. They expect everyone, including other women, to chase them the same way men chase them romantically. It's always me texting first. It's always me making plans. It's always me arranging reservations to make hangouts happen. Only to be told the day of that, like, oh, something came up, / they straight up admit that they forgot. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, girl. And their I'm so sorries are never followed up by, let me make it up to you. How about we do this or this instead? It's always just, I'm so sorry, blank.
What if everything you were told about modern womanhood was a carefully crafted lie, one that sounded empowering for 20 years, but is now collapsing in real time, leaving millions of women completely alone, broke, and terrified as middle age slams into them like a freight train? What if the same voices that screamed, "You don't need no man," for half a century are now the ones sobbing on TikTok, begging total strangers to explain why no good men approach them anymore? Stay until the very end because I'm going to show you exactly how deep this denial goes, how irreversible the damage actually is, and why the clock that women keep pretending doesn't exist is now ticking so loud that even their delusions can't drown it out. If you want more raw, unfiltered, angry guy content the second it drops, smash that like button right now. Share this video with every man you know who's waking up, subscribe, and most importantly, click the notification bell and select all so you never miss a single upload. Also, if you're serious about protecting your wealth in this collapsing economy and learning how to actually buy, sell, and trade crypto the right way instead of gambling your money away, go check out Angry's Crypto Academy. The link is in the description. Pause this video, click it, and start safeguarding your future today. And if these videos are hitting home and you want to keep the caffeine flowing so I can keep cranking out this content, buy me a Red Bull through the link in the description. Every can keeps the fire alive. Let's get into it. Picture this. A woman in her early 40s sits alone in her apartment, scrolling through her phone at 2 a.m., tears streaming down her face as she records yet another TikTok. She's wearing the same oversized hoodie she bought during the pandemic, the one that used to feel cozy and is now just another reminder that nobody is there to hold her. The caption reads, "I just want a good man to love me. Why won't anyone approach me anymore?" In the background, you can see empty wine bottles, unpaid bills stacked on the counter, and a cat that looks at the camera like even he's tired of the performance. She wipes her nose, looks directly into the lens, and says the words that have become the unofficial anthem of 2025. I did everything right. I focused on my career. I traveled. I lived my truth. So where are all the good men? And the comment section explodes with thousands of women saying, same girl, while thousands of men quietly type, we're right here, but you told us to leave. Remember? This isn't one woman. This isn't 10 women. This is an epidemic playing out in real time across every social media platform, every city, every suburb in the Western world. Women who spent their 20s and 30s repeating slogans like the future is female and I don't need a man. I am the man are suddenly waking up to the brutal reality that biology, economics, and male self-preservation don't care about slogans. The same women who laughed at their grandmothers for getting married at 22 are now 42, childless, in debt, and discovering that their boss babe friends who swore, we'll all grow old together like Sex in the City, are nowhere to be found when the medical bills show up. Let me paint the full picture for you because this story didn't start yesterday. It started 50 years in the making. Go back to the 1970s. A generation of women was sold a dream. The dream said you can have it all: the corner office, the passport full of stamps, the body of a 25-year-old forever. And if you ever decide you want children, you can just snap your fingers at 38 and Prince Charming will materialize with perfect sperm, perfect credit, and zero demands. All you had to do was reject everything your grandmother knew about family, timing, and partnership because those rules were oppressive. So millions of women listened. They delayed marriage. They delayed children. They celebrated every divorce party like it was New Year's Eve. They cheered when their friends left perfectly good men because he didn't make me happy every second. They repeated the phrase plenty of time like a magic spell that could stop ovaries from aging. Fast forward to today. That spell wore off, and the hangover is biblical. These women are now hitting perimenopause with no husband, no children, no savings, and a social circle that consists of other women in the exact same boat pretending everything is fine. They post throwback photos from Mykonos 2017 with captions like living my best life. But the comments from their old ride or die friends have slowed to a trickle because everyone is privately panicking. The group chat that used to be full of brunch plans is now full of GoFundMe links for fertility treatments nobody can afford. The same women who bragged about making six figures are quietly moved back in with their parents at 43 because rent is impossible and HR just laid off half the marketing department. And here's the part nobody wants to say out loud: their health is starting to fail. The endocrine disorders, the autoimmune issues, the mystery fatigue that no amount of yoga and green juice can fix. The body that was supposed to stay 25 forever is sending invoices. And there is nobody there to drive them to the doctor appointments, nobody to hold their hand during the scary ultrasound, nobody to make sure they eat when the depression hits so hard they can't get off the couch. They told men for decades, I've got my girls. But when the diagnosis comes in, those girls are suddenly super busy with work or going through it themselves. I want you to really sit with that loneliness for a second. Imagine being 50 years old, staring at a hospital ceiling after minor surgery, and realizing the only person who came to visit is the nurse you tipped extra at Christmas. Imagine the silence in the apartment when you get home. No footsteps, no how are you feeling, babe? Just you, the cat, and the sound of your own heartbeat reminding you that time is undefeated. This isn't hate. This is observable reality. These women spent years mocking men who warned them. They called us insecure, bitter, misogynistic, stuck in the 1950s, any label they could slap on us to avoid hearing the message. We said the wall is real, and they laughed. We said fertility isn't a suggestion, and they rolled their eyes. We said men will stop simping when the risk becomes too high, and they called us losers who couldn't get laid. Well, congratulations. You won the argument. Men did stop approaching. Men did stop simping. Men did walk away. And now the silence is deafening. Every single day, my inbox is flooded with screenshots of women on dating apps raising their age limit to 65 because the 35-year-old men won't message back. Every single day, I see new videos of women crying in their cars because Hinge only shows them divorced dads and guys who list poly in their profile. Every single day, another influencer who spent 10 years telling teenage girls to live your hot girl summer forever quietly deletes her TikTok and books an emergency egg freezing appointment that costs more than most people's yearly salary. And the coping mechanisms are something to behold. They tell each other we're entering our wise woman era. They say, I'm focusing on my healing. They say, the divine masculine is being recalibrated. Anything, literally anything except the truth. They ran out the clock chasing a fantasy that was never real. And the men who could have built a life with them at 25 took the hint and built that life with someone else or with no one at all because peace became more valuable than chaos. Because here's what women still don't understand. And this is the part that keeps me up at night laughing. Men adapted faster than they ever imagined we could. When women said, we don't need you, most men spent years trying harder. We went to therapy. We read the books. We became the emotionally available guys you claim to want. We learned how to communicate feelings, how to plan cute dates, how to be supportive when your boss was mean. And what did we get in return? Accusations of being weak, mockery for showing vulnerability, laws that let you take half our money for the crime of trying. social media campaigns dedicated to exposing us for texting hey. So eventually, we stopped. We didn't rage quit all at once. It was slow. One by one, men looked around and said, "This isn't worth it." We watched our fathers get destroyed in divorce court. We watched our friends lose access to their kids because an ex got bored. We watched good men get canceled for a joke from 2009. And quietly, without announcement, we opted out. We kept our money. We invested in crypto. We lifted weights. We built businesses. We traveled with the boys. We discovered that being alone is not the same as being lonely when the alternative is constant stress, criticism, and financial extraction. And now women are shocked that we're not lining up to rescue them from the consequences of their own ideology. They post videos saying men aren't men anymore, while completely ignoring the fact that we became exactly what they demanded. Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now. And then they punished us for it. They wanted men who cry, we cried. Then they called us soft. They wanted men who split the bill, we split the bill. Then they said we weren't providers. They wanted men who never initiate, we stopped initiating. And now they complain nobody approaches them in public. You cannot make this stuff up. So here we are in 2025, and the Great Awakening is in full swing, except it's not men waking up anymore. It's women waking up to an empty bed and the realization that all those "you go girl" pep talks from divorced aunts and childless bosses were the most expensive lies ever sold. And the economy, oh man, the economy is pouring gasoline on this fire. These women spent decades believing the state would always be there to catch them when feminism's promises fell apart. Free healthcare, UBI, student loan forgiveness, whatever magical government program was going to replace the husband they didn't want. Well, guess what? Western governments are broke. The United States alone is $36 trillion in debt and adding another trillion every 100 days. Europe is collapsing under migrant costs and pension promises it can't keep. Canada just announced a recession. Japan's debt to GDP is over 260%. There is no cavalry coming. The same women who marched for equality are about to learn what equality really feels like when the social safety nets evaporate and there are no men left willing to subsidize their lifestyles. Rent is up 60% in five years. Groceries are up 40%. Insurance is unaffordable. And the men who used to absorb those costs because happy wife, happy life have taken that money and invested it in themselves. We're stacking Bitcoin while they're crying about the price of eggs. Kevin Samuels tried to warn them. He said, "Ladies, winter is coming." They called him every name in the book. Well, winter showed up wearing a balaclava and it's not leaving. And now the tears are flowing like cheap wine at a divorce party. Every single day, another video drops. A woman in her late 30s, perfectly filtered, sitting in her leased SUV outside Whole Foods, voice cracking as she records herself saying, "I make $90,000 a year. I'm fit. I go to therapy. I have a skincare worth more than most people's rent. Why can't I find a good man who will commit?" And the men in the comments, men who used to trip over themselves to wife up women exactly like her 10 years ago, simply reply with the shrug emoji or "You'll be fine, queen." No white knights, no rescue missions, no DM me. Let's talk about it. Just silence, or worse, laughter. That is new. That is historic. Men have finally learned to watch the ship sink without jumping in after it. Because we have seen the pattern too many times now. We have watched the same movie on repeat since MySpace days. Girl gets endless attention from 18 to about 32. She dates for fun, keeps a roster, posts thirst traps with captions like "catch flights, not feelings," tells every decent guy who wants commitment that she's just focusing on herself right now. Then one day she wakes up and decides it's baby time, husband time, settlement time. She flips the script overnight and starts posting reels about masculine energy and protectors and providers. The men who worshipped her at 24 are now either married to someone 10 years younger or they have completely checked out of the game. And the only men sliding into her DMs at 37 are the same players she friend zoned at 27, except now they know the game too. And they're just looking for a pump and dump before they go home to their peace and their crypto wallet. That is the cruelest plot twist of all. The guys who used to be beneath her standards are now the only ones still willing to entertain her. And even they don't want commitment. They just want to hit it raw on the second date and disappear. She spent 15 years telling nice guys they weren't tall enough, rich enough, exciting enough, and now the only men who will tolerate her attitude are the exact guys she used to warn her friends about. The universe has a sense of humor that would get it canceled if it had a TikTok account. And let's talk about those high value men she keeps demanding. Where did she think they went? Did she think the 6'3" engineers making 250 grand were just sitting in a cryogenic freezer waiting for her to finish finding herself in Bali? Those men locked down the sweet 26-year-old physical therapist who cooks and doesn't argue about money 5 years ago. Or they moved to Thailand and married a feminine woman who thinks calling him daddy is a compliment, not a red flag. Or, and this is the majority now, they looked at the divorce statistics, the biased family courts, the social media humiliation rituals, and said, nah, I'm good, and bought a truck, a dog, and a piece of land instead. Those men are not coming back to save you from the consequences of your own ideology. They are on a fishing boat right now, sipping a beer and laughing at the group chat memes about another "Where have all the good men gone" video. Women still don't grasp how permanently the script has flipped. They keep waiting for men to step up the way we did for literally thousands of years. They keep waiting for us to ignore the risks and ride in on white horses because real men are supposed to want the challenge. But real men looked at the challenge, ran the numbers, and decided the juice is no longer worth even a single squeeze. Real men realized that being called toxic for opening a door is not a challenge, it's a trap. Real men realize that marrying a woman who has slept with 50 guys before him and spent her prime years on yachts with millionaires is not a challenge. It's charity with extra steps and alimony attachment. Real men realized that peace is priceless and chaos is expensive, so we chose peace. And peace looks glorious from this side. I want you to picture the average man who walked away. He wakes up at 9 on a Saturday with zero obligations except whatever he feels like doing. He makes a protein pancakes, hits the gym, maybe plays some Call of Duty with the boys, then goes to his favorite steakhouse alone, and the staff treats him like a king because he tips well and never causes drama. He comes home to a spotless apartment that stays spotless because nobody is there to mess it up, with Target decor and emotional dysregulation. His phone is not blowing up with accusations or demands for emotional labor. His bank account is growing because he's not paying for bottomless brunch or surprise shopping sprees or "I need help with rent this month" from a woman who claims to be independent. He falls asleep watching a movie he actually likes instead of some reality show about rich women screaming at each other. That man is living better than most married kings in history, and he knows it. Meanwhile, the women who spent years calling that same lifestyle sad and lonely are discovering what actual loneliness feels like. It's not eating alone at a restaurant. Men have been doing that happily for years. It's eating alone in your kitchen at 45 while your fertility doctor's voicemail plays on speaker, telling you the latest round of IVF failed again. It's realizing your mother is getting older and there will be nobody to help you take care of her because you don't have a husband or sons. It's looking at your friend group and realizing half of them are on antidepressants and the other half are one bad month away from homelessness. It's understanding far too late that all those years of empowerment were just a long, slow march toward a future poverty and isolation masked as freedom. And the worst part for them, they still can't say it out loud. They still can't admit, I was wrong. The ego is too bruised. The sunk cost fallacy is too strong. So instead, they double down. They make videos about how men are intimidated by strong women. They write think pieces about the maturity crisis in modern males. They tell each other that the right man will see their value eventually. They pay life coaches thousands of dollars to manifest a six-figure husband who doesn't exist. They freeze their eggs and pretend science can outsmart God's design. They do everything except the one thing that might actually help: look in the mirror, take accountability, and change. Because changing would mean admitting that their mothers were right about settling down younger. It would mean admitting that the divorce bitter aunts who told them, you don't need a man, were coping, not wise. It would mean admitting that the men they called controlling for wanting commitment at 28 were actually protecting them from exactly this outcome. And female ego simply will not allow that level of humility. So they would rather die alone with cats and box wine than say, I should have listened when I had the chance and die. That is why you see 40-year-old women on dating apps still writing no hookups in their bios while wearing dresses cut down to their navel. That is why they still demand a man make 50% more than them while offering nothing but loyalty and therapy speak. That is why they still believe Prince Charming is hiding somewhere, waiting for a post-wall feminist with student debt and an attitude. The delusion is industrial strength at this point. It has to be, because the alternative is facing a level of regret that would crush most people into dust. But here's the part that almost makes me feel bad. Almost. And some of these women are starting to wake up. You can see it in the comments sometimes. A woman will post one of those crying videos, and then weeks later, she'll post a follow up where her whole energy is different, softer, quieter. She cut her hair, ditched the filters, started dressing feminine again. She makes a video saying, I spent years pushing good men away because I thought I was the prize. And now I see I was wrong. Those videos don't go viral because the algorithm doesn't like accountability, but the men see them. And you know what we do? We still don't come running, because even when a woman finally gets it, the damage is usually done. The best years are gone. The body count is in the triple digits. The trust is shattered, and most men who walked away and did the deep internal work to never go back to Egypt. So we leave a heart emoji, maybe a respect, and we keep scrolling. The prodigal daughter can return all she wants. The feast is no longer being prepared for her. That is the new reality, and it is colder than any winter Kevin Samuels ever warned about. Women spend 50 years telling men to man up, do better, be better, pay more, risk more, give more, while simultaneously making the cost of doing any of those things catastrophic. And men listened, not in the way women expected, but we listened. We stepped up to the challenge of building a life without the chaos modern women bring. We manned up and took responsibility for our own happiness instead of outsourcing it to relationships that punish us for existing. We did better by removing ourselves from spaces where we are hated simply for being born male. And now women are experiencing the world they demanded, one where men treat them exactly the way they claimed they wanted to be treated, which is to say, left completely alone. Be careful what you march for, ladies. You just might get it. And the irony is so thick, you need a chainsaw to cut through it. The same women who screamed, I don't need a man from rooftops, are now making TikToks begging men to bring back chivalry. The same women who called paying for dinner transactional are complaining that men won't even buy them a coffee. The same women who celebrated independence are one missed rent payment away from moving back in with mom. The same women who said masculinity is toxic are wondering why the remaining men act like passive cowards. You broke the machine, threw away the manual, and now you're mad it won't turn back on when you finally need it. This is what accountability looks like when it finally arrives uninvited. It doesn't come with soft lighting and an apology tour. It comes with silence, higher grocery prices, and the sound of your biological clock exploding like a grenade. And here is the part where the story gets darker than most people are ready to hear. But I'm going to say it anyway because somebody has to. The women who are crying the loudest today are not the ones who simply made a few bad dating choices. They are the same women who spent the last 2 decades actively campaigning for the destruction of male incentive structures. They are the ones who clapped when false allegations ruined lives. They are the ones who shared kill all men memes and then wondered why men stopped approaching them at bars. They are the ones who wrote viral tweets about how marriage is a tool of the patriarchy and then turned around at 38 and demanded a ring from a man who makes 3 times her salary. They are the ones who told teenage boys they were inherently dangerous just for existing with testosterone and now act confused when those same boys grew up and decided women weren't worth the legal risk. These women didn't just ride the wave of cultural decay, they were the wave. They weaponized every institution against men and called it progress. They turned HR departments into feminist re education camps where a single complaint could end a 20-year career. They turned college campuses into kangaroo courts where believe women meant evidence optional. They turned dating into a minefield where saying the wrong thing at the wrong time could get you doxxed, fired, and unpersoned before dinner. They turned social media into a panopticon where every private message could be screenshot and used as a public execution. And then they had the audacity to act shocked when men looked at that battlefield and said, hard pass. You don't get to spend 20 years telling men they are trash, rapists, oppressors, deadbeats, emotional infants, and then turn around at 40 and say, okay, but where are the good ones who want to wife me up and pay my bills? That's not how reality works. That's not even how karma works. That's delusion on a level that should be studied by psychologists for the next 1,000 years. And the most infuriating part is how they still frame it as men's fault. Every single video follows the same script. Men aren't stepping up. Men are afraid of strong women. Men only want Instagram models now. Never once, not one single time, do you hear, I spent my prime years treating decent men like disposable entertainment, and now the consequences have arrived. Never once do you hear, I helped create a culture where normal male behavior is criminalized, and now no sane man would risk approaching me. Never once do you hear, I was sold a fantasy by corporations and bitter academics, and I believed it because it felt good in the moment. Instead, they just keep moving the goalposts. First, it was we want equality. Then it was actually we want equity. Then it was we want to be worshiped for existing. And every time men adjusted, the rules changed again. Every time men tried to meet the standard became you're doing it wrong. So eventually, men stopped playing the game entirely. We took our ball and went home. And home has never been more peaceful. Let me give you a real world example that happens literally every day now. A woman in her 40s joins one of those Are We Dating the Same Guy Facebook groups. She posts a picture of a man she went on 2 dates with, writes a novel about how he love bombed her because he texted good morning for a week and asked if anyone else has tea on him. Within hours, 20 women chime in with rumors, half of them about completely different men who happen to have the same first name. The man gets fired from his job because someone sent the post to his boss. His dating profiles are mass reported and banned. His reputation is destroyed forever. And 6 months later, that same woman is back on TikTok crying about how there are no good men left. That is not an exaggeration. That is Tuesday. Multiply that by millions of smaller incidents, the false accusations, the public shaming for looking too long at the gym, the recordings of men minding their own business on the subway, the cancel campaigns over decade-old tweets. And you start to understand why men en masse have chosen self-preservation over pursuit. We are not intimidated by your salary. We are not scared of your attitude. We are simply unwilling to play Russian roulette with our lives, reputations, and finances for the privilege of dating someone who views us as a walking ATM and a potential future defendant. And the economy is about to make this unbearable for women in ways they haven't even imagined yet. And right now, we are still in the whining on social media phase. Give it another 2 or 3 years when the real recession hits, when the layoffs become permanent, when the credit cards max out, when the government checks stop coming because the debt bubble finally pops. That is when the real panic will start. That is when you will see women who spent their 20s calling marriage slavery suddenly demanding the government force men to marry them. That is when you will see articles about the marriage crisis written by the same journalists who spent years celebrating single motherhood and hookup culture. That is when the phrase incel will quietly disappear from the lexicon because even the media will realize it's no longer accurate. Men aren't involuntarily celibate, they're voluntarily opted out. And the women who spent decades telling men, we don't need you, are about to learn what needing someone actually feels like when there is no one left to need. Because here's the secret nobody wants to say out loud: men were always the contingency plan. The government was never going to replace husbands. Welfare was never going to replace fathers. Corporations were never going to replace providers. Those were temporary bandages sold as permanent solutions. The real safety net was always men's willingness to work themselves into early graves to keep women comfortable. And that willingness is gone. Not diminished, gone. Men are no longer willing to die for people who hate us. Men are no longer willing to bankrupt ourselves for people who celebrate our destruction. Men are no longer willing to sacrifice peace for the privilege of being called toxic every day. We are keeping our peace, our money, our time, our attention, our seed, and our sanity. And there is not a single law, not a single shaming tactic, not a single tearful TikTok that can bring us back. Women are about to learn the difference between equality and replacement in the most brutal way possible. Equality means you get to compete in the arena men built. Replacement means you have to maintain the arena after we leave. And women were never designed for that. Nature didn't build women to be lone hunters in a collapsing economy. Nature built women to choose the best protector and provider while they still had maximum leverage and then cooperate with him to raise the next generation. When women abandoned that design for Instagram, likes, and corporate slogans, they didn't become men. They became unemployed men with worse coping mechanisms. That is why you see so many women spiraling into New Age spirituality. Crystals, tarot cards, manifestation coaches, anything that promises magical rescue without personal change. Because the alternative is facing the void they created. The alternative is admitting that 50 years of empowerment was the biggest bait and switch in human history. The alternative is looking at the younger generation of women who watched all of this unfold and decided to get married at 24 to a plumber who treats her like gold and realizing you lost the plot completely. And the younger women are watching. That is the part that keeps the old guard up at night. Gen Z women are not buying the lies anymore. They saw what happened to their aunts, their teachers, their bosses. They saw the lonely wine mom future and said, no thanks. They are getting married younger, dressing feminine again, learning how to cook, calling their boyfriend sir unironically, and laughing at the boss babe propaganda their mothers swallowed whole. The pendulum isn't just swinging back, it's swinging back with a vengeance. And the women who spent their lives telling those girls to never depend on a man are about to become cautionary tales instead of role models. That is poetic justice on a scale Shakespeare couldn't dream up. So when these middle aged women cry about, where have all the good men gone? The honest answer is, we're right here. We never left. We just stopped participating in a system that hates us. We're lifting, stacking money, traveling, building, laughing, sleeping 8 hours a night, and living better than any generation of men in history. And the price of admission to this piece was simply refusing to engage with entitled, delusional, state worshiping, responsibility dodging modern women. We didn't disappear, we upgraded. And no amount of crying, demanding, shaming, legislating, or manifesting is bringing us back to the plantation. And winter didn't just arrive, it moved in, changed the locks, and turned the heat off. Welcome to the world you built, ladies. And now we have to talk about the part that makes even the strongest men pause for a second before laughing: the biological betrayal that no amount of therapy, affirmations, or government subsidies can negotiate with. Women were sold the lie that their fertility was a subscription service with an unlimited extension clause. They were told 40 is the new 30. You can have a baby whenever you're ready. Science has your back. Celebrities paraded around with twins at 47, carefully omitting the dozens of failed IVF rounds, the egg donors, the surrogate wombs, and the seven-figure medical bills. Regular women watched that highlight reel and thought it applied to them. They thought biology would wait while they climbed the corporate ladder, collected passport stamps, and rotated through situationships with guys who had situationship in their Instagram bio. Now the invoices are coming due, and the bank of biology is foreclosing without mercy. Every week, another clinic quietly releases updated statistics. Live birth rates for women over 40 using their own eggs are under 5% per cycle. 5%. And that's before you factor in the chromosomal abnormalities, the miscarriages, the birth defects, the lifelong guilt when the child you finally had at 44 is diagnosed with a condition directly linked to advanced maternal age. The same women who used to say, "I'll just adopt," are discovering that adoption agencies won't even look at single women over 40 with no family support system. The same women who said, "I'll just do IVF," are finding out that 6 rounds at $25,000 each still leaves them with 0 children and a second mortgage on a condo they can't sell in this market. And the silence from their supportive friend group when the pregnancy test comes back negative for the 12th time is louder than any argument they ever had with an ex. I want you to picture something truly haunting. A woman in her mid-40s finally meets a man who is willing to overlook the past, overlook the debt, overlook the attitude. He's decent, stable, wants children. They get married fast because the clock is screaming. She spends the wedding night not celebrating, but calculating ovulation dates. The honeymoon isn't in Bora Bora, it's in a fertility clinic in Cyprus because American prices are insane. They spend the most romantic week of their lives with her legs in stirrups while a doctor harvests eggs that are, in his words, poor quality. She comes home, posts the obligatory ring photo with the caption, "God's timing is perfect," and privately cries herself to sleep every single night for the next 2 years as every embryo transfer fails. That is not a horror movie. That is Thursday for thousands of women right now. And the worst part, even if by some miracle she does get pregnant at 43, the pregnancy is labeled geriatric on every medical form. She is high risk from day one. The chances of preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, preterm birth, and cesarean section skyrocket. She spends 9 months terrified instead of glowing. And when the baby finally arrives, she is 44 years old with a newborn, no family nearby because all her friends are child free, and a husband who is suddenly realizing he signed up to be a father at 50 while simultaneously becoming a full-time caregiver for a wife whose body is breaking down from the trauma of late pregnancy. That child will be entering college the same year the mother needs a hip replacement. That is the future these women traded their 20s for. That is the real meaning of having it all. Meanwhile, the men who could have given them healthy children at 27 with zero medical intervention are either married younger women or decided the genetic roulette wasn't worth playing at all, and nobody can blame them. Why would a healthy 35-year-old man sign up to spend his prime earning years bankrolling IVF for a woman who spent her prime fertility years riding the carousel when he can either stay single in peace or date a 28-year-old who gets pregnant on the first try and still has the energy to be a mother instead of a medical patient. Nature is not a feminist. Nature does not care about your master's degree or your follower count. Nature set a hard expiration date, and no amount of outrage can negotiate an extension. And the coping is reaching psychedelic levels now. You have women in their late 40s making TikToks about how motherhood is a mindset and I'm a dog mom, so I understand sacrifice. You have influencers selling courses on how to manifest pregnancy at any age while hiding their own donor egg babies. You have support groups where childless women gather to convince each other that not everyone is meant to be a mother 5 minutes after crying in the bathroom because a stranger's baby smiled at them in Target. The mental gymnastics are Olympic gold because the alternative is looking directly at the truth. They were robbed themselves, not men, not society, not the patriarchy, themselves. They robbed themselves of the one thing evolution programmed them to want: more than food, more than safety, more than status. Healthy children born in the window nature provided. And they did it for brunch in Miami, promotions that don't matter when you die alone, and the temporary dopamine rush of being the hot girl in the friend group. That regret doesn't come in waves. It comes as a permanent pressure on the chest that never lifts. It's there when they wake up. It's there when they see a pregnant 25-year-old glowing with ease. It's there when their married friends post Christmas card photos with 4 kids and a golden retriever. It's there every Mother's Day when Facebook reminds them they opted out of the only holiday that will ever be about them. And there is no escape. You can travel the world, buy the designer bags, get the fillers, adopt the rescue dogs, start the podcast, do the ayahuasca retreats. The regret is still waiting when you get home. Because deep down, every woman knows the one thing all the money and freedom in the world cannot buy back is time she spent believing lies. That is why suicide rates for childless women over 50 and older are quietly exploding, while married mothers in the same age group are statistically the happiest demographic alive. The data doesn't lie, the body keeps the score. And the body knows when the primary biological directive was ignored for ego and ideology. But even that pain, even that tidal wave of regret, still isn't enough to make most of them take accountability. They would rather blame men for not wanting to date older women than admit they priced themselves out of the only market that ever mattered. They would rather call children crotch goblins and then cry themselves to sleep than say, I was wrong. The ego death required to admit I destroyed my own future for temporary validation is too much for most of them. So they medicate with wine, SSRIs, astrology, and rage at men who moved on without them. And the men? We watch from a distance, no longer with anger, just quiet observation. We see it every day in the comments. She's 42 talking about starting a family. Bro, she can't even start a load of laundry without posting about how exhausted she is. She spent her 20s collecting red flags like Pokemon cards and now wants a man with no baggage. She says she brings peace, but her entire personality is trauma and Chardonnay. We don't say it to be cruel. We say it because it's true. And the truth is finally allowed to breathe in male spaces. Because for the first time in history, men have options that don't involve self-destruction. We can stay single and thrive. We can date younger women who never swallowed the feminist poison. We can move abroad and find feminine, family-oriented women who think treating a man well is normal, not a favor. We can build brotherhood stronger than any marriage ever was. We can focus on legacy through business, mentorship, community, art, anything except subsidizing a woman's bad decisions. And the numbers don't lie. Marriage rates are in free fall. Birth rates in the West are catastrophic. Male happiness is quietly rising for the first time in decades, while female happiness has been plummeting since the 1970s. The experiment failed. The control group, men who refused to participate, is winning. The test group, women who believed the lies, is entering the find out stage. And there is no political solution, no government program, no male positivity campaign, no amount of shaming language like manosphere or red pill rage bait can force men back into a burning building we already escaped. The fire department has left the station, ladies. We took the trucks with us. And now we reach the part that almost nobody is ready to talk about yet because it hasn't fully hit. But when it does, it will make the last 5 years look like the warm up act. We are about to witness the largest transfer of loneliness, poverty, and untreated mental illness from one demographic to another in recorded history. And the recipients will almost exclusively be childless, never married, post war Western women aged 40 to 65. Mark my words. Between 2026 and 2035, entire apartment buildings, entire zip codes, entire suburban developments are going to turn into something that looks like a dystopian retirement home for women who were promised the world and ended up with a ring camera, a dying cat, and a Facebook feed full of other people's children. You think I'm exaggerating? Let's run the math in real time. Right now, in the United States alone, there are roughly 28 million never married women over the age of 40. That number grows by about 800,000 every single year as another cohort ages out of the marriage market without ever walking down the aisle. Of those 28 million, fewer than 15% have children living with them. Fewer than 8% have a partner of any kind. Over 60% are already on at least one psychiatric medication. Over 40% report persistent sadness or hopelessness in CDC surveys. And more than 70% say they have no one or fewer people they can call in an emergency. Those numbers are not going to improve. They are going to get exponentially worse. Because here's what happens next: the parents die. The last buffer generation that would have taken them in, cooked for them, driven them to doctor appointments, quietly paid the credit card bill when they were between jobs, that generation is aging out. By 2030, the majority of boomer parents will be gone. And when that final safety net disappears, these women will be completely, irreversibly alone in a way that previous generations of single women never were, because previous generations of single women usually had brothers, nephews, church communities, or at least neighbors who gave a damn. Modern women burned all of those bridges in the name of independence. Next, the jobs disappear. The corporate girl boss economy that employed millions of them in marketing, HR, diversity consulting, nonprofit grifting, and other make work positions is already contracting. AI is coming for every white collar job that consists of writing emails, making PowerPoints, and scheduling Zoom calls. Whole departments are being wiped out overnight. And women who were disproportionately hired into these cushy, low accountability roles under DEI quotas are about to be disproportionately laid off. When the severance runs out and the LinkedIn posts about exciting new chapters stop getting likes, reality is going to body slam them. Then the housing crisis finishes the job. The same women who laughed at men for living with roommates or in vans are about to be evicted from overpriced one bedrooms because rent keeps climbing while wages stagnate. Section 8 waiting lists are already 10 years long in most cities. Mom's house has been sold to pay for her memory care facility. There is no spare bedroom waiting. There is only a studio apartment with peeling paint, a lease that renews at 22% higher, and a GoFundMe that raises $400 from people who are also broke. And finally, the medical system collapses under its own weight. Medicare is projected to be insolvent by 2034. Private insurance premiums are already unaffordable for anyone without an employer plan. These women are entering the decade where chronic illnesses explode, hips give out, cancers appear, autoimmune conditions flare, and nobody, literally nobody, is there to take them to chemotherapy or pick up the prescriptions or cook a single meal when they can't stand up. That is when you will see the real videos. Not the filtered tears in the car with the sad violin music, the real ones. Grainy live streams from hospital parking lots. Women in gowns, bald from chemo, begging complete strangers for $50 on Cash App because their sisters stopped answering the phone 6 months ago. Women filming themselves eating cold ravioli out of a can because Uber Eats is too expensive and they can't walk to the stove anymore. Women quietly turning the camera off and never turning it back on again. That future is not speculation, it is arithmetic. And the most terrifying part, society has zero infrastructure to handle it. Old men die in wars or on job sites. Old women die in apartments because nobody checks on them until the smell drifts into the hallway. We have no modern equivalent of the Victorian spinster who lived with her brother's family or the widow who moved in with her daughter. Those support systems were deliberately destroyed in the name of not needing anyone. So when these women fall, they fall all the way down with nothing to grab onto. You think nursing homes are bad now? Wait until they're filled with angry, entitled, childless cat ladies who spent 50 years telling the orderlies' grandmothers they were oppressed for cooking dinner. Wait until the staff shortages are so bad that residents go days without being bathed. Wait until private pay rooms cost $18,000 a month and Medicaid only covers the places that look like prisons. That is the final stage of the experiment. But even when that wave hits, even when the loneliness is so crushing that suicide hotlines start running out of volunteers, most of them still won't take accountability. They will still blame men. They will still blame the system. They will still say, if only men had stepped up, while completely ignoring the fact that men did step up for centuries and were punished, extracted, vilified, and replaced every time they did. The last words of many of them will not be, I'm sorry or I was wrong. They will be, this isn't fair. And the universe will shrug because the universe is not a life coach. Meanwhile, on the other side of the divide, men who walked away are quietly building something new. We are buying land in red states with cash. We are forming brotherhoods deeper than blood. We are mentoring younger men so they never make the same mistakes. We are stacking assets, getting vasectomies at 30 if we choose, traveling the world on our terms, and sleeping like babies because nobody is plotting to take half of what we built. We are reversing 50 years of learned helplessness and rediscovering what masculinity actually looks like when it's not tethered to female approval or state violence. Young men today are not angry anymore. They're calm, dangerously calm. They watch these tearful TikToks the way people watch nature documentaries about animals that made bad decisions and are now starving on the tundra. There is no gloating, just quiet acceptance that the consequences arrived exactly on schedule. And the youngest generation of women, Gen Alpha and late Gen Z, are rejecting the entire script. They are getting engaged at 23 to men who own trucks and guns and have never heard of Andrew Tate because they don't need to. Their fathers taught them game before TikTok existed. These girls are wearing dresses again, learning how to bake, calling their boyfriends my husband before he even puts a ring on it because they understand something their mothers never did. Peace with a good man is worth more than a decade of chaos and applause. The wheel is turning, the fever is breaking, and when the dust settles, the only people still pretending feminism was a net positive will be the ones who have nothing left to lose by lying. So, to every woman watching this who is under 30 and still believing the lies, look at the women in their 40s crying on your For You page. Really look at them. That is your future if you keep listening to the same voices that destroyed them. Your beauty is on a countdown. Your fertility is not a suggestion. Your choices today are writing the script for the rest of your life. Choose wisely because the men your age are already choosing, and most of them are choosing peace over you. And to the women over 35 who are just now waking up, it might be too late for the life you were promised, but it's not too late to stop making it worse. Drop the entitlement, drop the attitude, drop the list of 597 requirements, find a decent man who is willing to overlook your past, become the kind of woman he can't imagine living without, and thank God every single day that he showed up at all. Because the window is closing faster than you think, and when it slams shut, it does not reopen. And to the men, keep walking, keep building, keep lifting, keep stacking, keep laughing. The peace you have right now is the most valuable asset on earth, and no amount of tears, legislation, or social pressure will ever make it worth trading away. All roads lead to MWA. Winter is here. Some of us prepared. Some of us became the shelter. And now, before we close this out for good, let's pull the camera back one final time and look at the global picture. Because what's happening in the West is not an accident. It's the end game of a 50-year social experiment that is currently being rejected everywhere else on planet Earth. Walk through any major city in Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, Latin America, or even the more traditional parts of the Middle East right now, and you will see something that feels like time travel. Young women in sundresses laughing with their boyfriends, families pushing strollers on Sunday afternoons, men who still open doors and women who still say thank you. You will see 24-year-old wives proudly pregnant and 26-year-old husbands who already own a small apartment because they didn't waste their 20s on bottle service and student loans. You will see grandmothers surrounded by grandchildren instead of cats and wine. And you will see zero TikToks about where have all the good men gone, because the good men never left. They just never allowed feminism to take root in the first place. Western women are now discovering this the hard way through something called passport sister content. You've seen the videos. A 38-year-old from Chicago lands in Colombia, posts a reel dancing bachata with some local guy who makes $600 a month and captions it, finally being treated like a queen. 6 months later, she's back in the States crying on a podcast because he ghosted her the moment her tourist visa ran out and her credit card was maxed. The comments are pure comedy gold. Girl, he has 3 other girlfriends and 2 babies here. You are a walking ATM with blonde hair. Welcome to the Find Out Olympics. These women genuinely believed their American passport, their HR salary, and their ability to recite bell hooks quotes would make them irresistible to men who grew up watching their own mothers cook dinner every night without complaining. They thought strong and independent would translate into every language. Instead, it translates into temporary entertainment with money. And when the money runs out, so does the attention. Shocker. Meanwhile, the passport brothers, the men who left, are thriving in those same countries. They're marrying feminine 25-year-olds who think calling a man handsome every day is normal flirting. They're having 3 or 4 kids without fertility clinics. They're buying houses for cash because the cost of living is a fraction, and nobody is trying to divorce rape them for half. They're sending pictures back home to the group chat of their pregnant wives cooking dinner while the boys laugh and say, "This is what y'all gave up for OnlyFans and corporate jobs." The gap is no longer theoretical, it is generational, continental, and permanent. And back in the West, the final stage of collapse is already being written in the budget spreadsheets nobody wants to read. By 2030, the interest payments on American debt alone will exceed the entire defense budget. Social Security will be insolvent by 2033, Medicare by 2034. State pension funds are already cutting checks at 60 cents on the dollar in places like Illinois and New Jersey. When those systems finally crack, the people who will suffer the most are not the men who spent the last decade stacking Bitcoin, buying physical silver, and learning trades. It will be the women who believed the government would play husband forever. The same women who called preppers paranoid are about to learn what paranoia actually feels like when the EBT card declines. And the men who used to pay the taxes that funded it have either left the country or stopped working overtime. You think the loneliness is bad now? Wait until the dollar devalues 40% in 18 months, and the only men still willing to date American women are the ones who can't get a passport because of child support arrears. Wait until the only job available is night shift warehouse work for $19 an hour, and the dating pool is just other broken people trying to split the $11 appetizers at Applebee's. Wait until the phrase soft life becomes the cruelest joke ever told. That is the real winter Kevin Samuels warned about. Not cold weather, cold reality. And there will be no cavalry, no government program, no eat the rich revolution, no sudden awakening where men decide the juice is worth the squeeze again. Just millions of women discovering that "you go girl" was the most expensive battle cry in human history. So let this be the final word, spoken plainly and without apology. To every man watching who still has a choice, do not trade your best years for applause that stops the second you're no longer the hot one in the friend group. Do not trade your fertility for follower counts. Do not trade a protector for a government that is about to default on every promise it ever made you. Do not trade peace for chaos. Do not trade reverence for eye rolls. Do not trade being cherished for being tolerated. The bill always comes due, and the interest rate is ruthless. To every man who walked away, you were right. You are right. You will continue to be right. Keep your frame, keep your money, keep your peace, keep your brotherhood. The world is about to get very loud with regret, and the only thing that will drown it out is the sound of you living your best life unapologetically. To the women who finally get it and are trying to course correct, respect. It's hard to admit you were wrong when the entire culture told you were right. If you're sincere, if you drop the entitlement, if you bring genuine peace and femininity to the table, there are still good men out there who will see your effort and meet you halfway. But understand, the market has changed. The price accordingly. And to the women who will never get it, who will die on the hill of "I did nothing wrong, men just need to man up," enjoy the cats, enjoy the wine, enjoy the sound of your own voice echoing in an apartment that will never have children's laughter in it. You won. You got exactly what you fought for. Savor it. History will record this era as the moment half the population screamed for freedom from the only people willing to die up to protect them, and then acted confused when those people chose to live instead. The experiment is over. The results are in. The control group is laughing on beaches in Bali with their young wives and healthy babies. The test group is crying in leased SUVs, wondering why nobody approaches anymore. And the rest of us are just watching the credits roll on the biggest social L ever taken, sipping something cold and enjoying the greatest peace men have ever known. Stay dangerous, stay free, stay walking. What did you think about all this? Did this one hit different? Do you see the collapse coming in your own city? Are you at peace yet? Or are you still watching the building burn from the inside? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk about it like men. Like the video if it spoke to your soul. Subscribe if you're not already. Share this with every brother who needs the reminder and every sister who still has time to save herself. Buy me a Red Bull if you're feeling generous, and always remember, all roads lead to MWA, men walking away. Cheers.
Nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh, nothing can compare to crypto.